Alright guys, we're gonna jump into this wrapper update, or should say dryer update. What we've got, the way I do my knives, this is a dryer stand. I prefer these with this type of chuck or a 3-jawed. You don't want the little rubber dome type chucks. Your dowel rod spins inside of them. So what you're going to need is you're going to need this dryer stand. You're going to need 2 of these roller stands and a 4-foot section of track. This is, I believe, a 1-inch, maybe 3/4. It's a 1x48 popular dowel rod. These little clips, you can get them off Amazon. They make different spring tensions. I think the blue's one of the higher ones. I just screwed them straight to the dowel rod. They're about maybe an inch apart. Some of them closer, some of them farther away. I really didn't measure. So you'll clamp your knives into these. One thing that you really want to make sure of is all this is level. So the way I leveled all this up is I put a board under it. This is a little bit higher. You can see where I've got it kind of blocked up. It's got feet on this end. It just depends on where you're setting it. But you want a full length board about 5 foot underneath to mount everything to, and then make sure this is level. It don't matter if your knife handles are up, down, as long as this is level, it will run the epoxy level. Of course, I paint everything on, paint brushes. This is one thing that I have switched to since the last video. I call it Gen 4, it's Generation 4, and it is a low build formula instead of high build. The high build actually goes on thinner, I don't know why. So the low build, it has bubble release, air release. It does have UV inhibitor. So this stuff is pretty good. It goes on nice and thin. Don't have to heat it with a heat gun. And if you see, let me just show you this real quick. You can see the syringe. So what I do is I drill a hole just a hair bit smaller than the tip on the syringe. I can suck my epoxy straight out of the bottle, and I get a perfect measurement every time. Now I do go, say I'm doing 8 cc's, I will go under the line for the resin. I will go just past the line for the hardener. And the reason I do that, the hardener's called a catalyst, of course, on Generation 4. I want just a touch more hardener. That way it's guaranteed to set up. Now if you get too much more hardener in it, it's not going to set right, but just a touch more, maybe a drop, it's going to be perfect. So all this stuff, I'll put links. Get Bit Outdoors for the tray and the roller stands. You can get dryer stands of Mud Hole, Amazon, wherever you want to get them. The clips come off Amazon. This dowel rod I picked up at Lowe's. They've got them. The Generation 4, that is kind of a, I've seen it on several different ones, but Mud Hole's where I usually order from, and that's mudhole.com. The stuff from Get Bit Outdoors, will be a link. It's getbitoutdoors.com. This is all fishing rod building equipment, is what it is. I used to build rods. I transferred that over into the knife handles. So basically the way this is set up, I can put, it's hard to do this and hold a camera. Get you pointed down here somewhere. So you can put basically 12 knives on this thing. You can put 2 pointed this way, 2 pointed this way. Same on each one. I've got 6 sets of these. This thing turns nice and slow. We'll kick it on here. You can kind of see how it turns. The reason you want these stands is all these rollers have bearings in them. You can weight this rod up. You can put as much weight as you want to on this rod. There's no weight on the motor, because if you get weight on this motor, it's going to pull that shaft down and your motor ain't going to last very long. So you want one roller stand on one end, one roller stand towards the other. As long as they're holding all the weight of everything on this drying rack, that's kind of what you want. As always, like and subscribe. If you have any questions, just post your questions down in the comments or email me, either one, I don't mind. But this is how I'm doing mine. It works really, really well. One more thing I want to make very, very clear on the epoxy and the knife handles. You want a room that's dust free. You do not want dust in these things. It screws your epoxy all up. Temperature controlled is better. If you do not have temp control, you can tell I've got a mini split in here. Your epoxy cure times varies very severely. If it's too cold, it's 14-18 hours. If it is too hot, yes, you can get by with too hot, because it will shorten it to about 6 hours. The average on this is 8. That's one thing you want to make sure of, though, is dust free. So something else I've been doing that I hadn't mentioned is, I said in the first video, I sand all these to 80 grit. I do. I have went back and started sanding the pins to 220. So just a strip along the pins to shine them up a little more. The 80 grit's kind of rough looking on the pins. But everything else on this knife is sanded to 80 grit on the handle. If you sand 240, anything fine grit, your epoxy does not stick as well. And you really want that epoxy stuck to the handles, otherwise they're going to get it out in the heat. It's going to start popping loose from the wood because of the heat and cold expands your wood, and you don't want that epoxy not stuck good to your wood. That's just a couple of little extras I wanted to throw on this video. This is probably the best way I have found to finish out handles, and the reason is, somebody's walking down the show and they're looking at dull finish, dull finish, dull finish. I mean, you can buff them out and get them to shine, but you can't get them to shine like this. So when they're walking through the show and they see that really shiny, high gloss finish, it's kind of like, ooh, shiny. But yes, it's the best way I've found to do it. I hope this helps some of the guys out. I know a lot of guys don't like sanding handles. I don't like sanding handles. I can sand them, I can buff them out just like everybody else. I just prefer this method.